young friend. Oh yeah, if you wanna go far, she'll take you from where you are. She's here to motivate, here to recreate. The Akia Garnett Show. Inspiration, motivation. The Akia Garnett Show. Recreation, reformation. The Akia Garnett Show. Dedication, expectation. The Akia Garnett Show.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Akia Garnett, your host for the Akia Garnett Show. And welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited because this topic and the guest that I have today is going to wow you. Yes, I'm setting him up to really bring the magnificence and the excellence and the brilliance to this show. I'm setting him up because I know that he can deliver. This show is all about doing business in the healthcare industry. And as I think anybody knows who's been around long enough to see that our baby boomers have been moving right through retirement and straight on over to where they want to spend their lives. The healthcare industry has been moving so fast to try to follow suit. In addition to that, all the wonderful, innovative things that have been happening in medicine has created such a boom in the medical technology area of the marketplace. And so it's no surprise that there's a lot of opportunities to do business in the healthcare industry, and that certainly does not exclude minority business owners. And so I wanted to take some time to talk to someone named Mark Cartwright. And Mark Cartwright is someone who should certainly be on your radar. He is currently the Senior Director of Supplier Diversity for Novation, but he is the former and immediate past Director of Supplier Diversity for the Commonwealth of Virginia. He was an appointee by Governor Bob McDonnell, and this was a newly created role for him. He certainly rose to the occasion. He was charged with providing leadership to over 171 agencies, and as a result of his time being there was a 46% plus increase in diversity spend. That's a huge accomplishment. And so us in the small business world, the entrepreneurship world, the supplier diversity and inclusion world owe a lot of thanks to Mark for the work that he has done, because he's laid such a wonderful foundation and just set the standard for what we can do when we really, really understand procurement, legislation, small business management, and so many other things. Now, today's topic specifically is doing business in the healthcare industry, what you need to know about government purchasing organizations. And this is a lot different from some of the more traditional markets in the small business community. Technology services, financial services, all sorts of automotive services and so forth differ in a great way from healthcare services. And Mark is going to break that down to us. He's going to help us understand exactly how we can create greater success for ourselves by understanding this very particular, interesting nook of that market, which is government purchasing organization. So without further ado, I want to introduce to some and reacquaint with others the Senior Director of Supply Diversity for Novation, Mr. Mark Cartwright. Hey there, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for such an enthusiastic welcome.
Well, I know you're going to bring it, Mark, so I'm just getting you warmed up because I know you've got a lot of stuff that you're going to drop on us in terms of the science in supply diversity and minority business development and all the things that have led you to be able to do the work that you're doing today. So I want to know if you can just start us off by telling us how you found your way to becoming an appointee for the Commonwealth of Virginia under Bob McDonnell.
Well, great. So my formal career in supply diversity goes back only about 80 years. And actually, I would say my career really goes back about 25 years when I got started in banking. I always had a focus on the small business owner. I did a lot of small business lending. I did most of the bank outreach programs. There was a bank set a program they called CRA, which stands for Community Reinvestment Act, and we had certain requirements that we would give back and provide funding and programming for the underserved communities. So really, that was match what I wanted to do to a T, and it's something I really enjoyed.
Okay. And so that, where were you operating in the country? Were you...
Right. Like I started in banking. I was in Roanoke, Virginia. After graduating from Virginia Tech, my first job was with Sovereign Bank, which at that time was the largest bank in the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
Now, right now it's part of the Bank of America family. But I was originally started off with Sovereign Bank in Roanoke.
Yeah, and Sovereign Bank, they had a pretty robust supplier diversity program, didn't they?
Right, they did. It was a leader, and they actually it was formed because it was Virginia National Bank and F&M Bank merged, and Sovereign Bank was created from that union.
Yeah, I definitely remember. I remember calling on folks over there for supplier diversity. So let's continue in this discussion regarding you finding your way to becoming an appointee, Bob McDonald's appointee for the entire Commonwealth of Virginia, and the agencies that you had worked with, 171 plus agencies that you had worked with. More importantly than that, the 46% increase in diverse spend that you were able to create or affect change for. I mean, what is that? Oh, how do you do that? How did you do that?
Right. So after being in banking for several years, my wife and I relocated to North Carolina, and at that point I decided I wanted to go to graduate school and decided to go full time. And so after graduate school, I went to work for GMAC, which is part of the General Motors family up in Philadelphia. Did that for about 7 years. I was on the team that started up their new bank, GMAC Bank, which is now Ally Bank. But I was I felt like there was something missing in my career. I wanted to give back to the community, and how could I get that done? So Virginia Tech was starting their Supplier Diversity program. I applied and got that job, and started that program, built that program up from scratch to a very successful program where it stands today.
Yeah.
And even then, I felt like I could make a bigger impact. And the state had put together a committee to study supplier diversity and how they could do things better. And one of the recommendations that came from that statewide committee was to appoint an individual who would oversee supplier diversity program for the entire state that would report directly to the governor, so you'd be kind of free from the agency battles that you have to wage.
Yeah.
You're not situated in one particular agency. You're kind of above the fray, so to speak. You could be the legislative watchdog. Could resolve disputes. It could be the voice for the governor's office going around the state talking about their program and putting changes in place that would allow minority businesses and women-owned businesses to be successful.
And so, Mark, why is this? Because I mean, I look at the stats all the time, and I continue to write. I'm a columnist, as you know, for Minority Business Entrepreneur magazine. So the stats are in front of me. I'm passionate and always charged up with making sure that there are opportunities for any person of a diverse background to be able to at least sit at the table and talk about what they can possibly do to enhance their own ability in business and also to create efficiencies and so forth for the companies that they're courting. But you also look at the need for minority business owners and people of diverse backgrounds to be included in procurement on the corporate and also on the government sectors and the public and private sectors from a variety of angles as well. And so help us understand in your mind why this, and based on your research, why is this still an issue? Why is this so important to address?
Right, it's important for reasons that everyone should understand, and that's the economic issues. We know that small businesses create about 2/3 of the jobs in the country, employ the majority of the people in the country, and also responsible for most of the job growth. But pretty much every minority-owned business is a small business. And as the country, our demographics are rapidly changing. We've all heard that we're soon where the minority population will be a majority population. So I would ask people to think about this. As we continue to look different from what we did 20 to 30 years ago, who's going to supply the goods and services so that the rest of the economy can function? if we're rapidly moving to where we have a largely African American population or Hispanic population, and our country needs to grow, if we don't remove barriers, if we don't put programs in place that will help them to be successful, it's not a situation of taking from the rich and giving to the poor, as some people have tried to say. It's clearly a situation where everybody is going to be worse off than what we were just a few years ago. Because then what? Companies will have to go overseas, continue to offshore their supply needs. Those dollars are not going to be reinvested in the local economy. I think that's one of the reasons why the economy has sputtered. Even though we've started to come out of the doldrums, we don't have full inclusion of minority business owners in the mainstream supply chain. Mm-hmm. And until that happens, and until we make it easier for that to happen, we're not going to reach our full potential from an economic standpoint.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just, music to my ears to hear you speak up for the cause, because it is only going to be a healthier and more vibrant, complete American marketplace when all types of businesses, regardless of who are running them, gets a chance to play. And we'll see greater innovations at that point. We'll see greater everything, because you will see in the marketplace the reflection of its people. And that's so very critical, to me, and it's one reason why I continue to fly the flag for not just minorities from an ethnic background perspective, but also any person who would have a diverse background when it comes to age, when it comes to any sorts of orientation. I mean, there are just so many other ways that diversity is categorized nowadays. And I think that you have certainly seen the evolution of this whole concept from supplier diversity to inclusion. And so as you continue to move to support the needs of small businesses, even in the healthcare sector with Novation, what are some of the things that you are having to help them understand up front before they're even ready to truly play in that space?
Right. First, I'll also comment again on you talked about the development of diversity and inclusion beyond just the supplier diversity piece. Numerous studies show that employers that are more diverse are more profitable. They have a much lower rate of employee turnover, mm-hmm. and they also show a much higher rate of employee satisfaction. And also, they tend to be more innovative and bring more new products to the market, because there is a diverse viewpoints at play.
Yes.
But in terms of if you're a diverse supplier trying to negotiate, the healthcare market or even some other large companies, you have to be prepared to have those conversations, and you have to be prepared to compete. And particularly as related to healthcare, the thing that makes the healthcare industry different from pretty much every other industry is the initial GPO, which stands for Group Purchasing Organization. So mm-hmm. most hospitals do not negotiate their contracts directly with their suppliers. The contracts are negotiated by a GPO such as Novation, where we're able to aggregate the spend of thousands of hospitals all across the country, small hospitals, large hospitals, mm-hmm. academic hospitals, rural hospitals. We're able to aggregate that purchasing power and get a much better pricing for the hospital, which over the last several years has saved the hospitals billions of dollars in expenses.
Okay. So let me ask you, Mark, when it comes to the GPOs, is it a similar structure? For those who may be listening and trying to wrap their minds around this, is it a similar structure to prime versus tier 2 spend? Or is
it's really different from that. You're still a prime supplier, but the difference would be like Novation is there in one of the, say, was with the VCU hospital or University of Virginia hospital there in Virginia. That if you're a supplier and you're interested in supplying them, and you talk to individuals in those supply chains, they will likely tell you that Novation is our primary GPO, and you need to contact them first. So that's the primary difference. And then you're going to go through the RFP process with the GPO, and you're going to find that it's actually more complex. It takes longer. It's more comprehensive. It's just a completely different animal.
Okay.
And you're thinking of, I'm trying to sell myself to Novation or another GPO, with the realization that Novation itself is not going to spend $1 with your business. Those contracts are then going to be used by the hospitals. To put things in perspective, for last year, for the first time, purchases on Novation contracts with our member hospitals exceeded $50 billion. That's a significant number.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it could be an additional hurdle to navigate, the thing is, if you're a smaller supplier, you couldn't call on every hospital or hundreds of hospitals on your own. So by getting that contract with the GPO, it really is like getting a seal of approval. You're still going to have to market yourself to individual hospitals and talk about why they should buy from you. But what that is, they know that you've gone through that very extensive process.
Yes.
That you've vetted thoroughly. And so, like I said, it's you're safe, so to speak. It's a huge advantage.
Okay, so it's almost like, and I'm gonna try to give it another spin.
Right.
It's almost like you're describing the GSA schedule almost.
Oh, you're exactly right. You can be on the GSA schedule, but what's on the GSA schedule, many suppliers are on that schedule. They never get one piece of business, one contract. There's just so many people in that space. But it is similar to the GSA schedule. It's like, okay, I'm going to date a certain person, but there's an intermediary I have to prove myself to first. Maybe it's kind of like the watchful father, looking out for his daughter. You have to prove yourself first, and so you have to find out, okay, which GPO is that particular hospital aligned with, and then we find out who the contract manager, what we call portfolio executive, that's the individual that manages that particular space, and we have them like that, pediatrics or orthopedics or cardiology, or what we call purchase services. It doesn't have to be a healthcare product.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a printer or construction or landscaping, legal services, anything.
And that was my question for you. My next question for you is regarding where, or do you have the stats on the top categories of spend? I mean, I know so many people say, well, they look at the healthcare industry and go, well, what do I have that's healthcare related? But there are so many other ways to support the healthcare industry without it being medical services or products.
Right, and that's why Choice Supplies, don't check yourself out. Hospitals, pretty much, we say we have about 90% coverage of anything that a hospital might buy. So like I said, it could be landscaping, construction, renovation, utilities, copying, all those things. We have an area which we call purchase services. That's a significant area of spend for hospitals, and also that includes the food service operation. Right, every hospital has a cafeteria. We have contracts in all those areas, and we're constantly adding to our portfolio. Often, what happens is as part of our relationship with the hospitals, we're able to see who they're spending their money with, whether it's on one of our contracts or off contract. So we see areas of significant spend. It's easy for us to go to the hospital and say, "Do you realize you were spending millions of dollars each year in copying, for instance?" Mm-hmm. And they usually don't have a good handle of how much they're spending. So we have a whole category of what we call purchase services to cover those areas. And in purchase services, we probably have our greatest concentration of minority and women-owned suppliers are in those areas.
Okay, and in what particular service areas would you say? I mean, I'm not using NAICS codes. I know we use NAICS codes in the federal space, but if you had to use a NAICS code sort of, concept, what would you say that, more spend is happening among minorities?
Right. So we see a lot of spend in the staffing area, staffing companies.
Okay.
Hospitals have a ongoing need for both clinical and non-clinical staffing, nurses, things such as that. We see some needs because of changes with the Affordable Care Act. Mm-hmm. People may not be familiar with now. Hospitals' reimbursements from Medicare and Medicaid are based largely now on patient care, the patient experience and outcome in the hospital, and also the aftercare they get. So we actually have a diverse supplier on contract that does patient like discharge surveys after they get home. How often have you heard from the hospital about your medication? What did you think of the care that you were provided? How are you now? What do you think the hospital can do better? That's created opportunities as well. And also we have some diverse firms that specialize in sterilization equipment and disinfectants. Mm-hmm. Because if you acquire a infection while you're in the hospital, Medicare and Medicaid is not going to reimburse the hospital for that when they caused an infection to begin with. So it's created some challenges, but it's certainly created lots of opportunities as well.
That's awesome. And so, when you're talking to, say, for instance, you're talking to a minority business owner, small business owner who's saying, I really want to position myself to be, successful in the healthcare space. Do you have a traditional track that you recommend that they pursue in order to build themselves up and to gain that credibility? And I don't mean when it comes to the actual core competencies that they're doing, but I mean in reference to the business development process and building those relationships and understanding how to navigate the actual program, the GPO program, and so forth. How do you help people position themselves?
Right. So it would be similar as if you were approaching the hospital or some other prospective customer directly in terms of understanding their business, understanding where their needs are, knowing how many facilities they have and where they're located, whether they have a research focus or are they more community oriented hospital. Those are the sort of things you need to find out. And often you're still going to have to reach out to the hospital directly as well to try to establish those relationships. Because one thing that makes it easier in terms of getting a GPO contract is that you already have some relationships with the hospitals prior to coming to the GPO. We have a list of our hospitals available on our website, and you can reach out to those hospitals directly. And often what happens is, for diverse suppliers, one avenue that we offer is that even though we may have a contract in place for a particular commodity or service, if you're a diverse supplier and you already have a relationship with, say, 3 or more of our hospitals, we have language within our contracts that allow us to add that diverse supplier, even though there's already a contract in place. So it's critical that before maybe coming to the GPO for the first time, that they've at least explored some of their hospitals. An easy way to do that is maybe talk to the hospitals in our local area first, within a certain region, to try to build some credibility. So that's one of the recommendations that we make consistently, to try to also develop those relationships with the hospitals at the same time that you're actually talking to the GPO as well.
Okay, and do you have any forecasting, insight to provide us with in terms of what the predictions are for the healthcare industry and what the predictions are for minority spend opportunities?
Right. So the healthcare industry, and particularly the supply chain, has been greatly impacted by the Affordable Care Act. And the act was not focused on the healthcare supply chain. It's not called the Affordable Healthcare Supply Chain Act. But what has happened is, if you look at the period from, say, 2011 to 2021, that 10-year span, hospitals are expecting a $155 billion cut in reimbursements for Medicare and Medicaid. So just think about that, $150 billion coming out of your revenue stream over a 10-year period. That's extremely significant. And there's limited ways as to how they can counteract those cuts. It's hard to provide quality care if you have less physicians, even though you have seen some mostly rural hospitals and some urban hospitals are actually closed. The way hospitals are dealing with that is, one, they're merging and consolidating. But the other thing they're doing is really trying to squeeze every dime, every penny out of the supply chain. So you have to present a value proposition from a pricing standpoint. You have to be competitive from a price standpoint. And the other part is in analyzing the spending areas for a hospital. Where is it spent? So in anything related to patient care is going to be critical. Anything related to maybe to surgical instrumentation is going to be critical. And the kind of interesting thing is, some of those most attractive categories, there aren't really a whole lot of diverse suppliers there, such as surgical instruments. Those areas where the hospitals spend a lot of money is areas where you should be focused. Unfortunately, in many categories where there's not much margin and there's really too much competition, we have too many diverse suppliers trying to get in those categories where it's already overpopulated with suppliers.
Absolutely.
Right. And the issue there is, even if you were to get a contract, reality is 5 years out, you're not any better off from an economic standpoint than what you were before. So I advise that the suppliers, particularly they maybe look at people that they would consider to be maybe competition in terms of combining resources and how can they be creative to come to the hospital with this new solution. Other thing hospitals are doing are getting together on their own and formal relationships, calling them supply networks. So the hospitals are still operate independently, but for the standpoint of purchasing goods and services, they've created their own supply network. So you also need to talk to the hospitals and find out, hey, you belong to a supply network, which supply network that is, who else is in that supply network. So it's a rapidly changing market. You really have to stay on top using social media, seeing what's out there, developing one or two key contacts at the hospitals and the GPO so you can gather market intelligence.
Well, you have, so I've got two questions here. You have been in Supplier Diversity long enough to see the trends changing, even just over the last, over the last 5 years or so.
Right.
And also, I'm going to couple this with the whole notion of minority business owners not, being awarded those very large contracts.
Right.
And just, the whole notion of having to work really hard as a minority business owner to get that $1 million deal, to get that, $5 million, heaven forbid, $50 million contract, which in many cases, according to whatever, your codes are, might push you out of small business world anyways. But what have you to say on that? Because as the, as you said, the Affordable Care Act, as that thing continues to do what it's going to do in the marketplace and new opportunities going to continue to emerge, some of them bigger than maybe what we've seen in the past, how are, minorities going to benefit from this, especially if historically they haven't been given that much opportunity to win those very large and sometimes nationwide opportunities?
Right. Yeah. So it would really, it appears to be counterintuitive, right? How can I cut costs and because the reality is most companies, not just in healthcare, they would rather have larger contracts with a fewer number of suppliers. So if you're a diverse business owner, minority business owner, you may feel like you're on the outside looking in, but that's not necessarily the case. So one of the initiatives that we put in place for 2014 is to do a better job. We know that most of our hospitals have strong commitments to their local communities. Not only do they provide health care, they're also, and especially the smaller communities, they're an economic bedrock of the community. And in some very areas of high minority populations, they're seen as a safety net hospital. So they have a very strong commitment to the local community and to local minority suppliers. So what we're doing is working more closely with our hospitals to find out what suppliers they're buying from locally, and then work to get those local suppliers on contract with us. Most of my travel so far this year and coming up for the next several months is going to events right with the hospitals. I was just in South Carolina a couple of weeks ago, meeting with some of one of our hospitals there, Commonwealth of Health, meeting with their suppliers, trying to teach them about innovation and helping them to get on contract. So the good news is, and we're not alone in that, a lot of GPOs, we are going to try to do a better job of engaging with the local minority suppliers and get them on contract again, because that's important to the member hospitals. But beyond that is just, again, to try to work to be competitive, look around, just as hospitals are forming these sort of supply networks, these informal groups, the diverse suppliers and minority suppliers, they need to kind of get together with some of their peers or so-called competitors as well to increase their capacity. It's not necessary that you don't have to be, buddy, that sort of thing. They need to trust each other, but you can see, hey, if we can combine our resources, that we're able to increase our service capacity, and that's going to be critical because again, hospitals, most organizations are trying to shrink their supply chain, and some hospitals or some companies call that supplier consolidation, some call it supplier optimization.
Yeah.
But what it means in the end is that you even have to be better positioned. But the good thing is, and which I even have to tell internally, is that minority suppliers can be competitive from a product quality standpoint and a cost standpoint. We have couple of our diverse suppliers now that really are the low price leader in that particular product category. And they've done it just like everybody else. They really watched their costs. Many of them have found raw material sourcing, offshore, overseas. So you can kind of copy the model that the large suppliers have. They can work for the small supplier as well.
That's great. Thank you so much for that insight. And so my follow-up question to you is regarding renewals and rebidding on opportunities and winning.
Right.
Over what stats have you seen for minorities? Because it's one thing to win; it's a great thing to win, But that's just the beginning of the relationship, the trust building process. And so you win it and you do an amazing job. You've got these service level agreements if you're in services and so forth or whatever, and you're really excelling and pleasing the customer. And, maybe they should begin to shop that RFP when the rebid time is up because they have to, or maybe not. What type of stats are you seeing, even in the healthcare industry, that says that there's some real there's more than just one night stands that are taking place with minorities in business?
Right, because one of my personal missions is I advocate that we want to bring suppliers that have the opportunity for growth, and they'll be around a long time. We want to build, because we have to get away from having a transactional relationship. Transactional relationship means we don't necessarily care about the other party. It's just we have this contract, and what that contract is fulfilled, we're going to put another RFP out and bid it again. And we haven't learned anything about the company. We haven't grown with them. We haven't allowed them to increase their product offering. So our commitment is to build those meaningful relationships, to approach a supplier and say, hey, we're looking at going in this particular area. I'll give you an example. We have a private label healthcare product called Nova Plus. It has 100% brand recognition within our hospital network because it has our name on it, so to speak. And we have multiple diverse suppliers that come into the Nova Plus channel that provide product to our hospitals. Matter of fact, we recently approached a diverse supplier because we wanted to offer a new product and asked them if they could source or manufacture this product for us, and they weren't able to do so. And so those are the sort of opportunities and things that we're making. So, yeah, is it competitive? Yes. Reality is, if you're a diverse supplier, you probably have to perform above and beyond every other supplier. Answer to that is probably yes as well. It may not be fair, but you're not giving as much benefit of the doubt. But the key there is to build those long-term relationships. And in many cases, we are extending these agreements. They come up for renewal. We're going to extend that agreement. Again, we try to build these long-term relationships.
And in the healthcare industry, are you seeing a particular concentration in minorities in business? When I say that from an ethnic race perspective versus women in business versus service, disabled veterans or people operating in a hub zone. All of those different classifications. Is there a particular group that surfaces in your mind and that seems to really have penetrated the healthcare industry and can serve as a model that other people can, look to and say, hey, they've been able to do it successfully, and so let's just take a closer look at what's actually been happening in this particular community.
Right. So if you look at, say, the minority community or the African American, Hispanic community, Asian community, particularly the Asian and the African American community, you see a lot of companies in staffing and IT because again, there's a tremendous opportunity there.
Sure.
And there's also tremendous challenges because it's a very competitive marketplace.
Yeah.
But now we've actually seen a lot of the diverse African American firms we have on contract that are actually getting into manufacturing. We have a great supplier down in Virginia that does that. And I have relationships prior before I joined Novation. But manufacturing area where we've seen some new growth, it's a little harder to negotiate because it requires more capital up front. But you're dealing with higher margin product that you can realize greater profit from. And by seeing you mentioned up front about some of the technology changes, and you're true. So if you can bring a new idea or service to the market, we have a innovative technology group within Novation. We've had several of our key diverse suppliers came to us not through our Supplier Diversity program, but through our innovative technology program. And some of the ideas that they brought were not necessarily something that you would take 50 years or 100 years to develop. It was just like a common sense approach to solving an everyday problem.
Wow. And so for Novation, what has been its claim to fame? Because I've seen several awards, that you all have been fortunate enough to win, showing that there's some great value coming from your executives and the work that you all are doing, laboring in the vineyard to provide opportunities and create a fairer marketplace. What, in your mind, have you seen that truly sets Novation apart in terms of its supplier diversity program?
One would be, I would say, the time and the commitment that we have to diverse suppliers. So, all the events, we did significant outreach events. If I go to just one event and I come back with one or two suppliers that maybe can do business with us, I consider that to be a success. But beyond that, it's just the time that we spend educating them on the GPO word. But typically when I have an intro call, like you go to some matchmaker event, and it's not much you can do if you get to chat with somebody for 15 minutes. But what I always do is we have a call when I get back to the office, and that call typically lasts about an hour. I just walk them through the process. This is what you need to do. This is how you register to be a supplier with us. And beyond that, the good thing is since we have a network of thousands of hospitals, and like I said, we have publicly owned hospitals and private research hospitals and things such as that, we're also able to point them in the direction of the hospitals that tend to have the stronger supplier diversity commitment. I have a 14-member supplier diversity board composed of some of the most prestigious hospitals across the U.S. We use that to vet suppliers. That's always a great entryway for those suppliers to say, hey, talk to these hospitals first because they have strong diversity commitments and they can help you get you on your way. And as you get a relationship with one, you can then build on that relationship to get a relationship with two or three more. So really, I would say our commitment. I have a supplier diversity manager. The program manager has been on board with Novation about 15 years. So she knows the process. She used to be an analyst on the RP side. So she's able to provide insight to tell them, hey, this is what you need to do to be competitive. When that RFP comes out, this is how you should respond to that and how you should answer those questions and the things that they're looking for. So we try to provide them with as much insight as possible.
Okay. That's great. And so let me ask you, what is it that you would like to leave behind in the minds for minorities in business and other diverse groups, of course, as I mentioned, some of them I mentioned earlier regarding women in business and so forth. What message can you leave behind? Because when you approach, I just had this conversation just last week regarding the small business owner or the entrepreneur who says, you know what, I'm good and I'm not going to apply for any certifications to prove or to show that I'm a minority or I've got an unfair disadvantage, and so I am just going to go after business on my own, and I know that I'll be successful. Versus the person, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because each person gets to decide how they want to represent themselves in the marketplace. Versus the person who says, I am qualified. I've got all the core competencies, and I'm excellent. I mean, I know that my products and services are amazing, and oh, by the way, I just happen to be a minority, and so I'm okay with leveraging this. What do you say to those in business who are struggling with that concept? Do I or don't I apply or move through supplier diversity programs?
Right, and I would certainly advise that they do mention the fact that they're a diverse supplier. Now, that of course, being a diverse supplier is not your value add. That's not your business proposition. Is hey, I'm a diverse supplier, because any supplier who thinks they're going to get business just because they're minority owned their people are probably already out of business. But when you have all these other things in place, your pricing and your quality, it doesn't make sense to hide the fact that you're a diverse supplier, and particularly in healthcare for this reason. I explained about the challenges with the Affordable Care Act and the great significant cut in reimbursements from Medicare and Medicaid. So a lot of the hospitals are even more dependent upon federal grants from the either National Institute of Health or Health and Human Services. Those federal funding has very significant supplier diversity goals built within. And one of our charges is to help our member hospitals by identifying those minority-owned firms that can do work for them. So for you to be a diverse business and not build upon the fact, it really doesn't make any sense, because a lot of hospitals out there, again, they're not going to do business with you only because you're a diverse supplier. If you are a minority supplier and you have all the other things in play as well, that's going to be a huge advantage to you.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's like us with our with our Tier 2 program. We know that we deal with a lot of large suppliers, and in certain categories we don't have any diverse suppliers in play. So we're looking down to that next level to say to a big company, to Johnson & Johnson, which is one of our strongest suppliers and advocates, to say, hey, in these particular categories, we're looking for you to have a strong, diverse program, and we're looking for you to bring some diverse suppliers to the table, and let us know who they are. So, again, I think it would be a huge mistake to have a strong supplier with a reputation and pricing, and then to not also leverage the fact that you also happen to be minority owned.
Yeah. And what are some of the agencies that you stand behind in terms of preparing? I mean, of course, I'm thinking National Minority Supplier Development Council being one. What are some other community resources that you recommend people check out so that they can begin preparing themselves to really compete?
Right. Of course, the NMSDC and the 24 regional councils that they have. A lot of, especially large urban cities such as Chicago, they have their own programs, and we accept certification from them as well.
Okay.
On the women-owned side, the WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, NAVO, the National Association of Women's Business Owners. One of our also programs is focused on veterans. So the NAVOGA, which is the National Veteran-Owned Business Association.
Yes.
That's very critical to us, particularly now with the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan winding down. More veterans are coming home, and they're also coming home to open their own business. So that's a critical focus for us as well. So,
okay.
And then in general, the SBA, the Minority Business Development Agency, which is a federal agency, we're working closely with them. We participated in an event they had in Atlanta a few months back, and you see, a lot of the diverse supplier advocacy groups, whereas before they didn't really have any specific healthcare initiatives. Now I've been to like 3 events already this year that are focused just specifically on diverse firms who want to enter the healthcare industry. So,
that's awesome.
A lot of these, right, and some of these events don't cost anything. So go get free training. Use that as a way to network, to meet the GPOs and some of the healthcare providers, and also then to meet some potential business partners, or to meet the large Tier 1 suppliers who are looking for a Tier 2 partner. So the main thing is, and also with social media, there's lots of information that you can gather for free. I think the worst thing that you could do is to approach a healthcare provider or a GPO, not first at least having gone to their website to find out about what they do, what their mission is, and how they operate. You have to have that information when you have that first conversation.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Tell folks how they can reach out to Novation Online if they want to find out more about your program and apply.
Right. So, we have a very, and I'll also mention this, because we serve, thousands of hospitals across the country. Our hospitals, for them, we created a Supplier Diversity toolkit, the first of its kind. So if there's a hospital out there that has no clue about supplier diversity, we have sample documents. We talk about how to get buy-in, what your organization can look like, how do you host a trade fair, what changes can you put in place in your contracting process, some sample language. So we kind of have like supplier diversity 101 for the hospitals.
Okay.
But for the suppliers, you go to our website, which is www.novationco.com. So Novation with CON.com, and look at our supply chain programs piece. There's a link to our supply diversity page. We have tons of information out there. We have links to other advocacy groups. Matter of fact, which is, we're probably the only one to do this, we even give you links to our competition. So we provide links to other GPOs and say, hey, if you're going to do business with us, we also encourage you to do business with the other GPOs, because the reality is if you have a contract with another GPO, you're going to be in a much better position to service the hospitals that are part of our alliance as well. So even say, hey, and we work closely with the other GPOs, particularly those that have strong supply diversity programs. We say go talk to them too. So go to that website. That tells a lot about what we do. It allows you to register, go in and register as a diverse supplier. And the good thing is, if you register with that program, we have a public website that we post that information in. So the thousands of hospitals that we have across the country, if they're looking for a diverse supplier in a particular category, you're not a contract supplier right now, they can go to that list, that category, and say, hey, in this category, we have 10 suppliers registered. So, and again, and even outside companies, that's not password protected. Anybody can go to our website to kind of see to see what diverse suppliers we have in the in our database. We know that people look at us as the industry leader. We cover about 50% of the hospital beds in the country. So often the competition is like, hey, if they're in the Novation database, they must be pretty good. So definitely go there and get registered.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mark. And there you have it, folks. In a nutshell, Mark is saying, yes, it's worth it to pursue your diverse qualification or certification, whatever it is that makes you unique in that way. It's definitely worth doing it. I certainly recommend it to you. You've heard it from Mark Cartwright now, who's the Senior Director for Supplier Diversity for Novation, and he's been my guest today on the Akia Garnett Show. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And stay tuned to akiagarnett.com for more information on upcoming show topics and guests.
Inspiring and empower you, giving you the tools to build your brand. It's a new day for a new way to bring your vision to pass. Another day, here to recreate. The Akia Garnett Show, teaching strategies that you need, empowering you to succeed. She has a plan to help build your brand. Oh yeah, if you wanna go far, she'll take you from where you are. She's here to motivate, here to recreate. The Akia Garnett Show, inspiration, motivation. The Akia Garnett Show, recreation, reformation. The Akia Garnett Show, dedication, expectation. The Akia Garnett Show.